Back in 2020, I was able to save $10,000 in 6 months, and in today's video, I'm gonna be breaking down the exact budgeting method I used to do that so that you can get the same results for yourself. If you're new here, hi, my name is Priscilla. I'm a former accountant and CPA, and on this channel, I talk about all things related to personal finance. So I will leave timestamps on the video here in case you wanna skip around to any certain portion, but let's go ahead and get into it. So I want to start off with a quick overview of how I was able to save $10,000 in 6 months. So whenever it comes to saving, you have to either decrease your expenses or increase your income, or ideally both if you want to hit your savings goals faster. But for me, I didn't have a side hustle at the time. I just had my 9-to-5 job, my 9-to-5 paycheck. So I focused on decreasing my expenses, and I was really able to pinpoint where I was spending too much and how I could bring those categories down by using zero-based budgeting. I really like zero-based budgeting, and if you're new to budgeting, I would highly recommend that you start with this method because it is highly manual and it forces you to think through every single expense and write out and allocate the funds to that specific expense. And that really gets you thinking, it gets you more involved with your money and knowing where exactly your money is going. Zero-based budgeting is also very flexible, and it can allow you to adjust where you're going to allocate your money based on the needs that you know you're gonna have that month. Like for example, if you know you're gonna have, say, a wedding or a birthday coming up and you have to budget that in, you can easily do that with this method. I want to contrast this with a different budgeting method, which is called the 50-30-20 method, where you allocate 50% of your money towards needs, 30% towards wants, and 20% towards saving and debt repayment. Now, some people swear by the 50-30-20 method and it works great for them, but I haven't really had much experience with it. I didn't use this method, although I will say it can be a good method to use, say if you have variable income and your income fluctuates highly month to month, then this might be a better method for you to use. The 50-30-20 method is pretty simple. It gives you a formula, like a structure that you can follow, but it is less flexible because you have those percentage allocations, and it is slightly less detail oriented as well because these are kind of more high level categories instead of really digging down into the details of your financials and knowing where every single dollar is going. You can really choose to use whichever budgeting method you prefer. I think it's great to use any one as long as you can stick to it and it works for you. That's better than not budgeting at all. But I want to show you how I budget using the zero-based budgeting method and using my newest budgeting template, which is called the 2024 Wealth Blueprint. And I will leave a link to this exact template in the description box below so you can access it for yourself. Okay, so I have pulled up the Wealth Blueprint here, and as you can see, I'll just show you a quick walkthrough. This file, the first page, has instructions on how you can use this whole spreadsheet. Besides just tracking your monthly budget, you can also track your net worth, and your net worth is a really important financial metric that you want to make sure that you're tracking at least quarterly, annually at the very, very minimum, but this is an important metric to have and you can track it using the spreadsheet. And you can also set up and track your sinking funds for planned future expenses so you can kind of build that into your budget. And as you can see at the bottom here, there are all the tabs for each of the months and then the net worth tracker and sinking funds at the very end. Okay, so I have the spreadsheet pulled up. This is an example of what a monthly budgeting tab looks like in this Wealth Blueprint. And just as a quick overview, you can see a lot of this will start populating and the charts will start filling out as I go through this. But this right now is an example budget, say for January 2024. And in this top section right here is where you can detail the start date. So I have all of them preset as the first day of every month, and that will impact the balance overview, and it'll kind of show you like how much you're spending per day and like what that looks like. So you can change this to whatever you want, but it's preset as the first day of every single month. And then on this side, you can add in your paycheck. So if you get paid twice a month, once a month, whatever that may be, you add in your payday. If you have a side hustle, you can add in your expected side hustle income. I would say to be more conservative, depending on your side hustle. If your income tends to fluctuate a lot, then I would recommend to be more conservative, because the numbers that you input in this expected column here will impact how much you have left to budget. So you don't want to overestimate that number and then end up thinking that you have more money to work with than you actually do. So I have gone ahead and added in some sample income numbers here for the month. So $2,340 for each paycheck, and then $1,000 for the side hustle. And then the first thing you're going to want to do after you add in your income is to come down here and start with your bills. So these are going to be like the typical bills that you have, like your rent or your mortgage, your water bill, your phone bill, internet bill, electric bill, things like that you're going to want to add in here. So I just have some few examples I have listed here, and I'll go ahead and fill these in really quickly. So say $1,500 for rent, $50 for the phone, $60 for utilities, and then $30 for trash, for example. And as you can see, when I'm filling this out, the chart here is updating, so it's showing you the budget expected, or the budget amount, sorry, for the bills. And then down here, the total has updated, and it has also decreased the amount left to budget, because as I mentioned, this is a zero-based budgeting spreadsheet, and at the very end, once you're done budgeting, you want left to budget to say $0.00, and that's how you know that you have properly allocated your income across all categories. So now that we're done with bills, we can go ahead and move on to expenses. So moving on to expenses, these are things like groceries, dining out, shopping, birthday gifts, pets, your health or medical expenses, things like that. You would add them into this expense section of the spreadsheet. And this section is fully customizable, because obviously we're all different and we all have different monthly expenses, or you may have like a certain unique expense that month that maybe doesn't reoccur the other months. So you can customize these. And as you can see down here, there are spaces for customization, and customization takes place in this annual totals tab, where you can go ahead and just change the name of this category, and it would update across all of the other sheets in this document. But let's go ahead and fill this out with some sample numbers. So let's say for groceries, we're gonna say $500 a month. For dining out, maybe $250 per month. For fuel, we're gonna say $150 for this month. Shopping, let's say we wanna decrease our shopping, so we're gonna allocate $100 this month. For home expenses, maybe $200 for the month. Gifts, let's say 0. Pets, 0. So what this does, now you can see the budget for the expenses is $1,200, and this chart has updated here, and then also our left to budget has decreased appropriately. So now that we're done with expenses, let's move on to debt and then savings. All right, so moving on to debt, this is where you would include all of the debt that you have. So for example, if you have credit card debt, that would be added into this section of the spreadsheet. And I do want to say, if you pay your credit cards off monthly, then you would not add that into the budget section. This is only if you carry a balance and you're actively trying to pay that balance down, and you have like active credit card debt. That's when you would add it in here. And then also if you have a student loan, if you have car loans, this is also the spot where you would want to account for that. So let's say you have a credit card debt of $700 that you're trying to pay off in January. You add that in there, and a student loan of $450, and then another student loan of $600. So the total here for the debt section is $1,750. And from there, we can go ahead and move on to the last category, which is savings. So I know I'm covering savings last, but you may want to consider allocating your money for savings the very first thing that you do. And this is called paying yourself first. You may have heard this phrase is talked about a lot in the personal finance community. And essentially what this means is that when you're starting off your budget, the very first thing, instead of starting off with your bills, you come straight to the savings section and you add in the amount that you want to save for yourself, for your sinking funds, for your high yield savings account. You add that in first and then build the rest of your budget around that savings figure. That way you are assured that you are putting something away for your future and for your savings goals. So that is something to keep in mind. I would highly recommend doing that if you struggle with spending too much and then not having enough left over for your savings at the end of the month. But for now, in this savings section, you can see that there are some spaces here, and these savings could be your sinking funds. Like as I mentioned before, there is a tab for sinking funds, so you could build those sinking funds into here and budget them in here. You can also use this for, say, your high yield savings account, your emergency fund that you're trying to build up. You can add that savings in here. But what I'm gonna do is just add in whatever is left to budget into the savings number one, and that way it will completely zero out. So I've added that in here, and you can see at the top there is nothing left to budget now. Everything has been allocated among bills, expenses, debt, and savings. So this is what you would want to do at the start of every single month. And then from there, you can add in the actual numbers, and I'll show you how to do that and use the transaction tracker coming up next. Okay, so now we are ready to add in the actual numbers, and this is something that you would do throughout the month. So I highly recommend setting up a weekly money routine where you come and you add in your transactions so that your spreadsheet will update basically in real time, and you can make sure that you're on track and are actually doing what you said you would do. And if not, if you see that maybe you're spending too much in one area, then you can quickly adjust. But you need to be doing this like weekly. That way you can see if there's a problem and then course correct. But the first thing you're gonna wanna do is start off by filling in the actual amount of income. So say everything goes as expected, then you can just copy over the numbers, and that will input the total income here, and you can see that left to spend has also updated. So you can see that this number will go down every single time that you add in transactions. That will bring the number down so you're aware of how much money you actually have left to spend. So after you've gone ahead and added in your actual income that you receive, then everything else takes place in the transaction tracker of this spreadsheet. So you don't actually go over here and change these numbers for the actuals. All of these are formulas, and they're linked to the transaction tracker, which is why it's really important that you keep this updated. That way you'll know where exactly you stand at that particular time of the month. But I won't make you watch me fill all this out. I have the numbers on the side, so I'll go ahead and fill that in, and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like after you have filled out the transaction tracker. All right, so as you can see, I have gone ahead and added in the monthly transactions down here in this section. And by the way, this expense type, it corresponds to these categories that you have here above. So it's just a drop-down menu, and you can select the exact category name so that everything matches up. And you can also add a description if you want to remember what exactly that expense was for. There's space here for you to type that in. And I want to show you just the rest of what the spreadsheet looks like. So you can see that the transactions have updated this chart, which is showing you where most of your money is going toward. So it has the breakdown for each one of these categories, and it shows you the expense type, the actual amount of money that is going toward that expense, and then the percentage allocation that makes up of your total income. So that is updated down here. And then also below there is a chart here, which is just your spending overview, so you can see the different categories, your bills, your expenses, your savings, your debt, and you can see the total budget amount for each one of those categories, the actual amount, and then the difference. And I'll come back to this difference number here in a second. And then this last chart down here is showing you the daily spending. So an important thing that you're going to want to do with this chart is to update the actual date that you made that transaction or you spent that money. That way you can come down here and it will show you how much you are spending on any given day in a particular month. So you can see sometimes like you're not spending at all, or you have like a big outflow. I think this one was for rent. So this will help you, especially if you want to have a no spend challenge. This will help you to see if you're actually, keeping up with that challenge or what have you. But I think this is a great way to see your actual cash out on a day-by-day basis, so you can see maybe you're spending more money at the beginning of every month or toward the end of the month, and then you can kind of switch your habits accordingly. But coming back up to the top here, you can also see that all of the charts here have updated to show the budget versus actual for each one of these categories. So you can see whether you actually did meet what you said you were going to do and what that difference looks like. And then you can also see this balance overview if you're kind of like dipping and spending more money than you actually had come in at a particular time of the month, which did happen in this case here for this example. And then you also have this spending overview chart where you can visualize how much of your money is going toward each one of those categories that you can see here on the right. So at this point, I have finished adding all transactions to the transaction tracker, but you can see that left to spend here is almost $300. And whenever there is extra money left over, you can either add it to your debt, you can add it to your savings, you can really do whatever you want with it. But in this case, I'm going to add this extra money here to student loan number 1 and pay that down quicker. So I've come down here, added an extra entry in $295.93. And now you can see that everything is 0. So left to spend is 0 and left to budget is 0, and you are done for the month. So there are a couple last things that I want to cover. It's really good to be consistent with budgeting, especially with this template, because as you can see as I'm displaying here, this annual dashboard will show you your spending habits throughout the year if you use the monthly budgeting tabs consistently every single month. So you can see your total income, your total expenses for the year, how much you actually saved, and then how much you were putting towards your debt. So here you can see a month-by-month view of total income versus total expenses, your budget versus actual as an annual view, and then also a breakdown of where your money goes as an annual view. So these charts are just kind of helpful to look at to see your spending habits overall and assess if you are using your money in the way that you want to. And then there's also this annual total spreadsheet, which shows you a month-by-month view. So this is helpful if you want to compare, like, how did I do in January versus March, or April versus May? You can see that your spending habits and what that looks like and how it varied month to month on this spreadsheet here. One of the most important financial metrics to track, which I don't think is talked enough about, is your net worth, because your net worth really is an overall measure of your financial health. And this spreadsheet will help you to track your net worth. So I would recommend updating this at least every single quarter so you can see your progress if you're moving toward the right direction. This will show you exactly where you are and where you stand. So with this spreadsheet, you would start off by setting the net worth goal. So you can set this to whatever you want it to be. And then after you set it, you will go ahead and add in your assets. So any of your cash, your bank accounts, your investment accounts, if you have any properties, any other assets that you want to add in here. And then you would add in your liabilities. So your loans, your car loans, student loans, any debts like credit card debt, you would add that in here as well. And it would then populate these 3 charts at the top. The first is your net worth evolution. So you can see month to month how this is changing throughout the year. if you are, keeping up to speed with it. So you can see that it started off negative, but then by December it was positive. And you can also see the same thing basically in this chart right here. And then it shows you your assets distribution breakdown, so you can see where most of your assets lie. And it does show you your total net worth and then your amount to your goal. So that you know how much you have left to hit your target. And then the last tab in this spreadsheet is the sinking funds tab. And this might be my favorite tab potentially. So this one will really help you to build out your savings bucket so that you can build this into your monthly budget and it doesn't disturb your finances. So say if you want to plan a vacation, or you're wanting to save for your wedding or your honeymoon, you can add that in here in the sinking funds tab, and then you'll know how much you have to save every single month to hit your target by your goal date. So for example, you can see here I have 3 example sinking funds: Christmas gifts, a Europe summer vacation, and then car repairs. And so you add in the start date for when you want to start saving for this, your goal date, and then the total amount that you're looking to save. And then if you have already started saving for this goal, you would add in this column how much you already have saved up. And then all of this in the gray area will automatically populate for you. So it'll tell you your current balance, how much you have left to save, and your monthly target. And then on this side, you can is a contributions tracker, so you can track how much you are contributing to these sinking funds and when. And then this will update your current balance. So you can see, like, say you put 400, 190, all throughout the year. You're going to want to update this so you can see how much you have in each particular sinking fund. And then these charts up here are kind of fun and helpful too. You can see the first one here is a savings progress. So it shows you the percentage to 100 and then how much you have for each one of your sinking funds, the balance distribution. So where do you have most of your money, and then also your overall progress toward completing all of your sinking funds overall. And then this last one here is your monthly target. So you can see which sinking fund, do I have to save the most for every single month? And in this case, it's the Europe fund. And then at the top, it shows you the total goal amount that you're looking to save that year in your sinking funds, your total current balance of what you have in your sinking funds, and then how much you have left to save to hit your targets. I hope you enjoyed this video, and like I mentioned before, the link to the spreadsheet will be in the description box below, so you can access it for yourself and start saving right now. And if you're wondering where to put all of this extra money that you're going to be saving next year, click the video on the screen for the top 5 best high yield savings accounts for 2024. Thanks for watching.